friends had a dog. He didn't want any longer, a bulldog. So Dad took Fern and I to see her, the dog, and we loved her, so we took her home. Her name was Toots. It was fun when she had puppies. We had to find homes for them. She lived a long time, way after I was married and when she passed on. Down our dirt road past the highway was the Taylor farm. They raised milk cows and pigs. One day, Mr. Taylor told my dad he had runt piglets. He wanted to know if Fern and I each could have one little pig. So my dad said, okay, but when they grew up, they would become meat on the table. Fern and I said, yes, that would be fun. So I named my little pig Patty, and she was pink, and later on she turned white. Fern named hers Blue Blood. Hers was black with a white band around his belly. We slopped our pigs. We mixed grain with water in a pail and then poured it in their trough. How they grew! They began to dig underneath the fence and were getting out. They dug with their nose, so Dad had a vet put rings in their noses so they would not get out of their pen. If they got out, we had to catch them, so they got bigger. Fern and I couldn't catch them. They became too big, so our brothers had to do that job. Soon it was butcher day. We couldn't watch, but they were shot in the head. Then their heads were cut off. Then they were hung by their back legs in our apple tree. They had to hang there till all the blood had ran out from the meat. Grandma Whitney, she made head cheese from the heads of the animals, and Mom canned all the meat. Fern and I could not eat the meat for a long time. But when we did, it was so good. We raised chickens for eating and for eggs, and one night our chickens were making a fuss. So Dad hopped out of bed and he shot his gun up in the air. And when he did that, he seen someone run out of our chicken coop with a chicken. It was the Depression years. So this man, he just needed food for his family. Whenever someone got sick, Grandma Whitney was at our house. She would go in the woods and dig up roots from sassafras trees. She would take the bark off and boil the roots to make a tea. It was so good, and it did make you feel a lot better. When I was very little, my parents raised a crop of popcorn. They let it dry and then they shucked it from the cob. They stored it in a large tin container. We had popcorn all my growing up years. I think they still had popcorn when I left home and was married. Every summer, my dad would plow his fields. He would plant clover or rye to build up the soil. As he was plowing, Fern and I would run behind in the cool furrows. It felt so good on our bare feet. When we tired, he let us ride on his Fordson tractor with him. We had a vegetable garden every year. It was fun to help plant the seeds one by one, except when we planted corn, then we put 2 seeds in the holes that Dad walked ahead of us. He had a little thing that he poked the hole with, and then we walked behind him, put 2 seeds in each hole. We had to weed the garden as it grew. It was hard work, but when things were ripe, They were so good. When we had more than what we could eat, Mother would can it. Fern and I helped her with the canning. We canned tomatoes, green beans, peaches, pears. We stored all these canned goods in the cellar. I wonder now, why didn't they freeze in the cellar in the wintertime? Because we didn't have a furnace. So I don't know, it never did. Dad dug out a coal cellar under his garage. Here we kept apples and potatoes all winter long. We had to sort the apples and potatoes every once in a while because if one spoiled, the rest of the bushel spoiled fast. We were the first farm to have electricity. As my father made his own, we had a windmill, and it charged batteries which made electricity. It was called a Delco system. I just remember two things that happened in my early life that happened to me. When I was 1.5 years old and I was walking well, I liked to be outside. However, I kept running away. I didn't stay in my yard, so my mother tied me to the clothesline pole. And she tied the other end of the rope to the pole and the other end to me. Then she didn't have to worry where I was, and I was safe. We didn't have a fence in our yard. It was summertime, and we had a water pump in our backyard, like this one, like this one. My sister Fern could pump the water. I used to sit underneath the spout. I would crunch down underneath the spout, and she would pump water on me. This was a fun way to cool off in the hot summertime, but I wasn't big enough to do the same for her. I couldn't pull the pump handle. Well, back to grade school years. Each fall, we got a new pair of shoes to start the school year. And I just only ever had one pair of shoes. We got just one pair of shoes a year. By summer, we had grown out of our shoes and we cut the toes out and made sandals. However, we mostly went barefooted in the summer. Going to the grocery store when I was little was a lot different from today. You went into the store and you stood at the counter and you read your grocery list off to the clerk. Then he went and picked up your things. We just went to the store to buy staples like flour, sugar, coffee, and milk. Flour came in big cloth bags, 25 to 50 pounds. Fern and I would get to pick what bag of flour we would buy, for we knew when we had 3 or 4 bags all alike, we would get a new dress. Mom would make out of the flour bags. Mom made all our clothes, sometimes out of hand-me-down clothing. If we got lucky, our dresses were made from store-bought cloth. On Sunday mornings, we would put on a clean dress with a pinafore. A pinafore was like an apron over our dress. Then I say a pinafore was an apron-like garment. So in the middle of the week, we put the pinafore in the laundry, and then we wore our dress without the pinafore the rest of the week. Saturday night, everyone got a bath. We didn't have a bathroom. Our bathtub was a galvanized tub. We put the water in by a pail and emptied the tub by pouring the water back in the pail, and then you emptied the pail outdoors. You didn't have any privacy, for in the winter we put the tub by the stove in the living room. During bath time, we would listen to the radio. By the time I was in 8th grade, I had 4 younger sisters. I used to sew them toys out of cloth. I would make an animal shape and then embroider on the design. We lived in a 2-story house. I would sit my sisters on the steps, and I would sit at the bottom of the stairs. I would be the teacher, and we played school all afternoon. Mother said she liked me doing this because she knew where we were and what we were doing. Helen, the oldest of my younger sisters, was able to read before she went to kindergarten. My sister Fern had a friend named Darlene. She lived across the highway from the Forest Grove School. Her father raised Jersey milking cows. One day, we were playing in the pasture, and we decided to ride the cows like a horse. It was fun, but they didn't move very fast. When Darlene's father found out what we did, he wasn't very happy with us. He said, "A cow's back is not strong enough like a horse's, and that we could have broken their backs." My mother made homemade bread. On the day she made bread, our house had the best aroma. I never forgot. It was so good to come home from school and eat a slice of warm bread. It just melted in your mouth. Near the blackberry patch was a hill, just right in the winter time to go sledding. One time I went with my brothers to go sledding. We stayed out too long, and when I got home, my feet were so cold that they had turned blue. Mom said they were frostbitten, so she sat me down by the stove and rubbed my feet until they got warm. I remember it hurt a lot. I tried to learn to ski, but my legs never were strong enough. I just fell on my fanny. My brother Donald joined the Army. I don't know how long he was enlisted for, but it seemed to me like a long time he was gone. Brother Kenneth went to live on a farm in Ellis, Michigan. He finished high school there and worked on the farm and earn his keep. After he graduated, he started his own business. It was a milk route. Each morning, he would go to the farmers and pick up their milk in milk cans and take it to the dairy, where it was pasteurized, put in bottles, and sold at the grocery store. In the evening, he went back to the farmers and picked up the milk cans again. Cows have to be milked every morning and every evening. I think Kenneth still has his milk route. But I don't think he has it now. But when I did this, he did at that time. The summer after 6th grade, my friend Sharon's family moved to Texas. It was a sad day for me when they left. We wrote letters to each other. She said when she started school in Texas, the girls didn't wear their dresses all week long like we did, but they wore a different dress every day. She stayed in Texas 3 years. Her family came back to Michigan. We were back together again for our 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. Sharon and I still write each other at Christmas time, and we still do. In the evenings, we often played hide and seek. This evening, it was Halloween. We have no street lights, and it was pitch dark. We got to chasing each other around and around the house. Dad took a pail of water upstairs and opened the window. Now, My father smoked, and he had a cigarette in his mouth.